something missing, so you run to the flicker of the neon signs. The streets paint a picture of the chaos in your mind. Electric roller coaster ride, yeah. In the big city there's a million lights. Everyone's looking for the thrill of the night. Wanna feel something different, feel something different, alright. In the big city there's a million lights. Everyone's looking for the thrill of the night. Wanna feel something different, feel something different, alright. Everybody's looking outside, cause they're trying to choose. It's the way to the world or the way to the blues. You get one little chance to make it better tonight, but you don't know what to do. Everybody's looking outside. Stay on the move, it'll eat you alive while you're paying your dues. You get one conversation that'll open your eyes. You can hear it if you listen, but you run to the flicker of the neon signs. The streets paint a picture of the chaos in your mind. Electric roller coaster ride, yeah. In the big city there's a million lights. Everyone's looking for the thrill of the night. Wanna feel something different, feel something different, alright. In the big city there's a million lights. Everyone's looking for the thrill of the night. Wanna feel something different, feel something different, alright. Everybody's looking outside. Everybody's looking outside, outside, outside. Everybody's looking outside. Everybody's looking outside. Can you feel it? Oh, can you feel it? Rolling through your body now. Can you feel it? Feel it, feel it. Everybody's looking for the thrill you find within a moment. Touch it, grab it, feel it, own it. It's gonna be for you know it. Everybody's looking for the thrill you find within a moment. Touch it, grab it, feel it, own it. It's gonna be for you know it. It's gonna be for you know it. It's gonna be for you know it.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and Keith Cheatham. What is going on over there? What?
I don't know.
They've got the jitters or
Oh,
something.
cocaine.
I don't know. I was thinking maybe it was all the leftover Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh
It
man,
is.
no!
That's
Leftover
what it was.
Thanksgiving dinner wouldn't like tweak
I'd
you
be
out. You'd be
sleeping.
like, you would just you'd
Well,
be
that's
dead, just
true.
like in a comatose.
I'm
man.
turkeyed out. Seriously,
Turkey now?
though.
You've had too much?
Oh, yeah. I've had like maybe 3 plates of leftovers. It's terrible.
It's not
I didn't-
terrible.
I didn't get
Leftovers are
enough.
my favorite.
Yeah, but after a while, I get sick of it.
I wanted more.
I don't.
But that's
I
that's
never
the
get sick of
problem.
Thanksgiving leftovers.
I mean, but that's the problem of not having like homemade Thanksgiving.
That's when you
you know,
rob your
where'd you
parents.
go?
Well, I
Golden
mean,
Corral?
it was homemade Thanksgiving, but it wasn't like my mom, like at my mom and dad's house.
You
Otherwise, I
can't-
probably
you
could have
don't
got.
take their leftovers home with you.
I do.
My
but
mom makes so much that it's like they're not going to eat it all, so
No,
she sends it home with me and Miranda.
They make enough to where it's like enough for one more day.
Oh.
Oh no!
That's it.
That's
I had enough
tragic.
leftovers just from taking it that
Yeah.
I ate like 3 or
Oh, I
4
know.
meals off.
And
of
I
it.
wish I
It's
wish I
great.
had. Now my
It's
mom's
great.
dressing.
Mm.
That was
Mm.
good stuff.
Mm.
What was she wearing?
Uh,
That was a good one.
so
Oh,
kooky, you
okay.
guys. Well, if the people tuning back in from last week's episode,
Mm-hmm.
they'll also notice a new addition.
Klaus
Is back.
Klaus.
Klaus is
the
back.
tainter of children, and her evil sorceress ways.
There she is. She returneth.
She comes back to taint the children, to darken their hearts. Her and her miscreant husband,
Who's that? Who could that be?
Mr. Klaus.
Yes, it's Christmas time, if you haven't noticed.
Yes.
It turned really
Time
joyous.
of joy.
Well, Christmas is a joyful time, except for when
Klaus is trying to ruin all of humanity.
her candle's not lit.
it's not lit.
It's not.
Does that work?
It's
well,
because she's a soulless human.
She hasn't
When
lit
that
her.
candle's lit, she pries the souls of the children from their bodies.
That's how we know she's stolen one.
Yeah.
She has her candle lit from all the souls.
Yeah. If we have any new viewers, could you explain who Klaus is? Why she's here?
She's
There she
Mrs.
is.
Claus.
There she is.
Mrs. Claus.
Mrs. Claus. She
No,
shows up,
she's
for
evil.
about a month out of the year, right?
She's evil.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all they
well,
need to know.
Gunther thinks she's evil.
Gunther?
Gunther.
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 Günther.
That was how when we played Medal of Honor. Gunther.
I remember that way back when.
Yeah.
That was the one you could pick. Was Gunther.
I always
Gunther.
pick Gunther because there's only like 2 or 3 characters unless you put in codes. So
I think there was like a wolf
Cheat
on there or
codes.
something. Yeah, you can make them like the big heads. And all
yeah,
that stuff.
Yep.
yeah.
But because it is Christmas time,
Yeah.
maybe Mrs. Klaus will have stolen a soul next week, and her candle will be lit.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Or we
Who-
get some batteries.
who knows?
Well, AA does do it, you know. But
Speaking of Christmas, I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
no, you go ahead,
As
Keith.
is tradition, we have our Christmas reviews, which always bring me tons of joy. But we always do so many different types. I mean, modern ones, classic ones, and we always hit a classic every year. I mean, I've done Miracle on 34th, I've done It's a Wonderful Life, we've done A Christmas Story, Home Alone, so many great Christmas movies. I thought, what about the ones that people still remember fondly, but really aren't good movies? Like, they're still terrible movies, but people watch them every year.
Yeah.
So I thought this year, just like with Halloween, I dedicated the Universal Monster movies, I would dedicate the Christmas reviews to Christmas movies so bad they're good.
So let's start this year.
The air is cold and crisp. Frost is on the ground. Yes, Christmas is upon us. It's the season of love and joy, caring and friendship, the season of giving and compassion. Over the years, we've reviewed Christmas classics and have many more that still need reviewing. But while Hollywood has often gotten Christmas right, it has even more so gotten it wrong. Sometimes, however, these failures still manage to capture the spirit of Christmas and offer up something entertaining despite being a mess. So this year is an ode to the non-Christmas classics, the holiday films that are terrible yet still hold a place in our hearts. Oh, the 1990s, a time full of camp and teen heartthrobs. One of the most notable among these was Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and while his career never went much past that of child star and teen heartthrob, he did give us a pop Christmas classic that may only be notable because it stars Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I speak of Disney's I'll Be Home for Christmas. Released in 1998, I'll Be Home for Christmas tells the story of Jake Wilkinson, played by Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Wilkinson is a cut-up and a con man on campus, supplying fake IDs and helping jocks cheat and ace their tests, while attending Palisade College in California. Jake and his girlfriend Allie are both from New York and have a fight about returning home for Christmas. Jake has not been home for the holidays since his mother died. Even though he is only 18, it could have only been away for college no more than a year. But when Jake's father offers Jake the Porsche if he can make it home on Christmas Eve by 6 p.m., Jake sets off across country to win back his girlfriend and claim the Porsche. Yes, first world problems. Yeah, this is a road trip Christmas movie, and like any good road trip movie, Jake will run into strange characters and suffer many setbacks. In the end, though, Jake finds the spirit of Christmas and sets things right with Allie and his family. I'll Be Home for Christmas is not well made nor well written. It's cliched and generic, and the acting is campy and often phoned in. Yet it still has a charm to it. Taylor Thomas channels his best Zach Morris and Ferris Bueller combo, and let's face it, the smart aleck kid who knows he's good looking is what Taylor Thomas does best. Jake stumbles from event to event, with none of it mattering much except to teach Jake a predictable lesson. And while the acting is bad and the jokes are predictable, the actors do give it their all, which makes it all the more entertaining. By the film's end, you haven't witnessed anything spectacular, but Jake's decision, spoiler alert, to forego the Porsche in favor of being with Allie and his family does oddly land. It's hokey but meaningful, yet still unrelatable for those who aren't rich. So yes, while I'll Be Home for Christmas is trite and predictable, it does have some genuine laughs and a lot of heart, capturing what Christmas is all about. I give I'll Be Home for Christmas 2 out of 4 stars. Well, there you have it. 2 out of 4 stars. And I know there's plenty of 90s children that are probably very angry with me right now. How could you rate it? It's Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, there's so many.
Admit it. Admit
So
it.
many.
Take off the rose-colored glasses. Watch the movie.
Yes.
It's a terrible... I love it too, but not because it's good. It is a terrible movie, but it does hit the Christmas spirit. I mean, it has a good message. It kind of nails the Christmas spirit, which many bad movies don't. So at least it gets the spirit right. It's hard to relate to a kid who's, I mean, I know he learns his lesson in the end, but the whole goal is that if he gets home for Christmas from his LA college to New York, he gets the Porsche. And it's like, okay, how is this relatable to normal people that this rich kid is like, his father's bribing him? If you come home for Christmas, I'll give you the Porsche. It's just it's just very funny. It's one of those things where it's like only Hollywood could make something like this and try to make it relate to normal people about the whole like learning your Christmas lesson, but yet still be so.
It's funny because it's like what you said. It's like, I don't know, just the very essence of there's so many people who they pull this one out of their hat, and I think it's only because of it being Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and because of the huge '90s star he was. And it's like, and honestly, that's all I ever hear.
And of course, you know, he's his normal cheeky, smart Alex.
Yes.
I mean, that's just the character
That's who he
Jonathan
was in
Taylor
everything
Thomas
that he
played.
was in,
He tries to pull off, like I said, like you know, the Ferris Bueller type of like
Zach Morris,
Zach Moore, Ryan Reynolds, Van Wilder type. Like, oh, I'm just this cool guy who gets into all kinds of trouble, and it's like. Yeah, but you're still, you know, babyface Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I mean,
but here's my other question. So that was 2 out of 4 stars.
Yes.
So are all of our? I mean, here's the thing: the category is so bad that they're good.
Yes.
Are we gonna see worse films that get higher ratings?
We might.
Or are they going to be bad ratings and they're just that good?
They're just
because they're that memorable.
I mean,
I will
saying
say
the
on a
rating is-
technical level, this movie is probably worth the 1.5. I may have boosted it up a little bit for
But
the
2 is just
nostalgia and the
because
fun.
it's entertaining.
Yeah, and it is
'Cause
entertaining.
it's bad.
And some of them, none of these movies are going to get, I would say, a 3.5 or 4-star review at all.
Yeah.
I'm not even.
If they even come to 3,
I would say I'm not
gonna be
anticipating a
questioning.
3 either, but we'll see. I mean, I have to watch. I've seen all the ones, I think, but I am going to rewatch them.
Mhm.
But it's funny for what it is. I mean, to see him and Jessica Biel, who's not, you know, the greatest actress, but not a terrible actress, but she is terrible in this. So it's kind of like, it's funny to watch these actors who you know aren't really that bad,
Yeah.
but the movie's just poorly written, poorly directed. And when they're spouting out lines, and when she's like, she has this line that I felt like was so ahead of its time because it was in the 90s, where she's talking to this guy. He's basically this jock bully who kind of like abandons Jonathan Taylor Thomas's character in the desert without her knowing, and she was relying on Jonathan Taylor Thomas to
Sounds so
give him a
good.
ride. So basically, he offers her a ride back home since Jonathan Taylor Thomas's character has gone missing. So she's reluctant to go, but she's like, "You say one thing that's sexist, homophobic, or I forget, or racist, and I'm gonna slug you." And I'm like, "Where'd this come from in the 90s?"
Yeah.
So it was so odd, but I was like, it was a moment that just kind of stood out now, and I'm like, this is weird. But but yeah, the whole movie is just him on like basically a road trip type film. Think like National Lampoon's Vacation or Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where he keeps running into all these weird characters that help him, like, you know, he's trying to get across country and they help him along the way, and he gets into all these antics, but each person he meets he helps and learns a lesson from, and then by the end of the movie he realizes that what's important isn't the Porsche,
Well, of course.
but the family.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
It says right there on the cover art that he finds the true meaning of Christmas.
yeah,
I mean,
right
it's
there on the
literally-
poster.
It is one of those movies you don't have to see it to
You
know
don't
what
have to see to
happens.
know
You just
that-
know.
You could every step of the way you know how it's going to turn out, but
But here's the thing.
it's humorous, it's funny.
While that may be the case for I'll Be Home for Christmas, that's not the case for our next film.
Mm.
You can't really quite figure out what's going to happen in this one. Is that correct?
Here's the thing. I pride myself on being able to figure things out ahead of time. Most of the time, like there's like I ticked my cousin Ty off because I figured out the twist of the first. I only watched the first season of Dexter and that was it. But I figured out the twist before it happened and it kind of ticked Ty out because he thought it was something but I was just like, that just seems so blatantly obvious. So I loved this next movie, which is Knives Out, because it threw so many red herrings that I thought for sure each time I had it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And while I had maybe a portion of it figured out each time, the true like reveal finally at the end, I was like, that all makes sense.
Yeah, you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's check out that
Yeah.
review of Knives Out.
Rian Johnson became a polarizing figure in Hollywood back in 2017 with the release of Star Wars Episode 8: The Last Jedi. His eagerness to subvert expectations ruffled fans' feathers and ultimately left a bad taste in many viewers' mouths, yet garnered high praise amongst critics. After Johnson created such a divisive film, his next project seemed to come along relatively quick, but was welcomed with apprehension. Having seen it, however, I think it's safe to say that no matter whether you loved or hated Last Jedi, Johnson's newest movie, Knives Out, is worth a watch. Starring an ensemble cast that includes the likes of Christopher Plummer, Jamie Lee Curtis, Daniel Craig, Toni Collette, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Chris Evans, and Ana de Armas, amongst many more, Knives Out is a modern-day Agatha Christie-style whodunit. When the Thrombey family all gather for Patriarch and famous crime novelist Harlan Thrombey's, played by Plummer, 85th birthday party at the family mansion, Harlan's housekeeper finds him dead with his throat slit the next morning. Originally ruled a suicide by local law enforcement, the mysterious detective Benoit Blanc, portrayed by Daniel Craig, arrives having been hired by an anonymous party to investigate Harlan's death, suspecting it to have been a murder. Blanc interviews each family member one by one, but takes special interest in Harlan's nurse Marta, played by Ana de Armas, who physically cannot lie without vomiting. This case, however, won't be as cut and dry as murder or suicide. And as a series of clues and misdirection unfold, the truth of Harlan's death may have a bigger impact on the Thrombeys than they first realized. Knives Out is hands down one of the best mystery/whodunit films I have seen in ages. With unique characters and smart dialogue and witty humor, Johnson's murder mystery is a fun ride that puts a quirky spin on a classic genre. Johnson's desire for subverting expectations may not have paid off in his handling of Star Wars, but in the mystery genre, subverting expectations is a must in order to keep audiences from solving the mystery straight away, and Johnson goes all out. The film works almost as a love letter to and commentary of the genre, not taking itself too seriously, poking fun of murder mysteries in one hand, all the while offering up a serious murder mystery with fun and clever twists and turns, keeping you always guessing. Part of what drives Knives Out are the characters. Each member of the Thrombey family are well written and acted, creating people who are relatable as family. They have different ideals in politics, they fight and laugh, and they also mooch off one another and argue over inheritance, because what makes this film work is how close to reality it feels, while also displaying a note of surrealism. Yes, the film has been praised for its political allegory, and it's indeed there, but whether intentional or not, Johnson actually provides a fair and equal representation and isn't all one-sided. Despite a few political jabs here and there, most of it truly is allegorical, and none of it overpowers or diminishes the story, providing a film with rich subtext for those wanting to dig deeper, and a fun, brain-teasing whodunit for those just looking to be entertained and have a good time. I give Knives Out 3.5 out of 4 stars.
All right. I actually agree 100% with that star rating.
Nice.
That's a great review and a great movie.
I thoroughly, especially Rian Johnson after Star Wars.
Yeah, it kind of put a bad taste in your mouth for Rian Johnson. But, yeah, and I think even when we saw the trailers and saw his name attached to it, we were just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's probably
like,
going to suck.
What are we going to expect
Yeah,
from this
what are we
guy?
going to get from that? But that was, it really was one of those movies that I felt like the murder on was it the Orient Express?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, that's an old Agatha Christie novel or whatever, and all of those stories are almost the same. There's always like this murder mystery, and you kind of have it figured out. That movie tried to capture, I felt like they tried to encompass this huge plot, and they needed more movie to do that, and they squeezed it into this little 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
And I felt like that just kind of left things out and screwed things up. But the way that Rian Johnson did this, and I don't know, did he write this? and directed.
Yes,
Yes, yeah, he wrote and
so
directed.
The writing was fantastic as far as like just like you said, it gives you you think you've got it figured out,
Yeah.
and then he completely blows up your idea of how to.
But here's the thing: when he does is it logical?
Yes.
in the way
Yes.
he does
That's
it?
what I was gonna
Yes.
say. That's what makes a good
Very
mystery
well thought
is he
out.
gives like a good mystery will give you all the clues and it gives you red herrings to throw you off.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, once the mystery is revealed, like you do have like if because you had all the clues, you should have been able to figure it out on yourself if you can, and it gives you everything that where you can figure it out. It's just he subverts enough that you don't, and that's what I love because it makes sense. It's all like once all the clues are laid out and the finale's revealed, you're like, of course, but at the same time, it's like because of other stuff, you keep thinking, well, maybe this, maybe that.
Right. It's like you had the clues, but you looked at them the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, you just
Well,
didn't.
That
Go
was
ahead.
gonna be my question was because of it leading you down this path or follow the breadcrumbs. Is it one of those things that by the time the reveal happens in the movie, it's not that you feel stupid. Or like but it is one of those like okay now I'm getting it.
It's
Like
one of those things where
light bulb goes
honestly
off
like I don't want to say too much so as to spoil it, but it's one of those things where like I felt like, well, this is kind of something that I felt was almost obvious, but because he did such a good job with throwing you off this trail that it's like, okay, now it makes sense, and it's less obvious than it should have been because of the fact that he throws you off well enough. I mean, there's so many times that I thought going off of like because I've seen Murder on the Orient Express, and I've read Agatha Christie novels, and he does play homage to that. So there's many times where you're thinking, oh, he's going to pull this old trick from Agatha Christie, and then he doesn't. Like he kind of puts a twist on it, and I'm like, okay, that was smart.
Yeah.
So
kind of like with Star Wars. It's like I'm gonna make you think I'm making a Star Wars movie, but then I'm not.
So I would say,
But-
Last Jedi was ultimately Knives Out.
Yes.
This is really the sequel.
the problem is, which I told you before the problem is a mystery story needs you to subvert expectations so people don't solve the mystery right away.
Yes.
Star Wars, I'm not saying you shouldn't subvert some expectations, but you don't subvert everything that's ever been written before.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
that makes it
But
canon.
I mean, I will say, if he would make more films like this on his own, not relying on source material written by someone else over decades, then this I want to see more of his films.
Well,
like this was just fantastic.
even like I said in the review, there's been praise from some critics for the political stuff, and most of it is allegorical. It's not right in your face except for a few jabs, but it's fairly even-handed too. Yeah, which I loved. And I was gonna say, I felt like that was completely different from Star Wars, where some of the political moments in Last Jedi were like right in your face, like, well, this is how we win with love, and I'm like, this is so stupid. Whereas, but this is nothing like that. It's like it's more subtle, and when it's not subtle, it's realistic. Like watching them argue over politics.
That was one of the things.
Yeah.
It's to make the family feel like a real family. Every family's got people that's got different political opinions and different religious
and they're all
opinions.
in the room fighting over that one scene. and it's hilarious.
That just makes it more real because you've got people on this side of the aisle and people on this side, and they're going at each other. And the points that they both had are, I mean,
legitimate.
Yeah, they're legitimate points, and that was one of the things that I really.
Well, except for the kid, but that was hilarious because they called him.
They called him a little Nazi.
Little Nazi.
Yeah.
He was making some far right stuff that was hilarious, and at one point in the movie, someone calls him a little Nazi, and I was rolling.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though because you do have with the political climate that we're in right now and have been since 2016, you have younger people, like young kids that are kind of picking up on a lot of the
rhetoric,
a lot of the pro-Trump or anti-Trump stuff, and this is like one of those little boys that picked up on the pro-Trump stuff and thinks it's cool to run his mouth and to act a certain way when reality, he really doesn't know anything about politics or about policy or any of these things. And I thought that was funny that they didn't do that with like a 20-year-old person.
No, they
did it with
kid.
a little 13-year-old that's just trying to be a little troll.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the one girl calls him. She
God.
calls him a little, a right-wing troll or something, or a
absolutely.
alt-right troll is what she calls him.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
so,
it's really
it actually
funny.
throws out
Yeah,
though. Like,
there are
yes.
some. There are
political
some.
terms.
Like I said, most of it's allegorical, but there are some jabs. But like I said, even the jabs are even pretty equal.
Yes.
Like that's not
Yeah.
just one sided. and it's realistic is what I liked about it. It
Yeah.
didn't feel like I was watching this propaganda thing being forced down my throat. It just felt like a real family fighting over the stuff that families, especially in a death in the family, when you see them fighting over stupid stuff like politics, and then it'll change from politics to, well, who's getting the inheritance? And it's like, it just felt so real. And I mean, a lot of that comes from the performances. I mean, everyone in this movie I felt gave a good performance, but I mean, really, I would have to say Ana de Armas, or however you pronounce her name.
I can't pronounce her name.
I had to look it up for the review.
All
So
I know
it
is
is.
that she was in. Oh yeah, I know
But
that. She's in. Oh gosh, what was it? Blade Runner.
She was in
Yes.
Blade Runner, yeah.
She gave an amazing performance. She was really good. Daniel Craig and the whole like Southern drawl, like KFC
Which I've noticed
detective
he can really pull that accent off.
He
like,
can.
what's the movie?
Logan
I'm getting
Logan
naked.
Lucky. Yeah.
I'm
Logan
getting
Lucky.
naked.
Yeah. I mean, he really does
Bacon.
that really well.
It's funny when you watch like him as James Bond, and you're like, okay, he's just the typical action figure. Like, it's not like bad acting, but it's
honestly,
not.
I think
but
that's
then you
what
see
Daniel Craig has been. That's why he's wanted to end that role
in
James
other,
Bond,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
because he's wanted to showcase like his other chops when
Yeah.
it comes to acting. He actually wants to act,
Yeah.
not just play a typecast.
And
character.
but when you see him in movies like this, you realize he can act. Like, he's not just the action hero.
Yeah.
So I was impressed. I mean, Chris Evans, was great to see him be like this
something
little,
other than Captain America.
basically to be a complete shit, because he
yeah,
was.
he's
He
an
was-
anti-hero kind of guy. Yeah.
And
so
it
he's
was
opposite of Captain
Yes,
America.
I mean, he's like the exact
Yes.
opposite, and it's great. And I mean, I think that's what they were going for, anyways,
Yeah.
just because people recognize Chris Evans. But the whole cast, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, Christopher Plummer, who of course is a legend, Tony Collette. I mean,
Langford
Michael
from,
Shannon.
Michael Shannon. Yeah. was-
Langford from what's her name
Fantastic.
from 13 Reasons Why, I know was
Yeah,
in there.
she's
yeah,
in it,
she's in
yeah.
it. She's not a very
Yeah,
big role.
Yeah,
but,
she doesn't have a whole lot of screen time.
but I mean, all of Michael Shannon, like,
he was really good.
he's a good actor, anyways.
Yeah.
I feel like, but I felt like in this movie, like, he just felt real. Like, the last thing I saw him in, what was it, The Shape of Water, and he was terrible.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh! Well, who wasn't in that movie?
Yeah.
Who wasn't the stereotype? Come on,
So
Guillermo.
seeing him play like this guy who's just like part of the family, I was like, okay, he felt really real and
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's that scene where he tracks her down to her house and he's in the hallway.
Yes.
talking to her, and that felt like so. It was like he was trying to intimidate her.
He was being
but he was
nice,
trying to be
but yeah.
nice about it. But you knew that he was really threatening her, and I mean, obviously she played that scene
I thought everything
very well. But I
was
mean,
good
he
with her, yeah.
just really brought the presence like to that scene. That was probably one of the
Yeah.
best, my favorite scenes in the movie, because I'm just like, dang, like, and then her response to that
Yeah.
was even more incredible. But there were so many moments in the movie that were like that, like when Chris Evans is sitting down in the restaurant with her,
Yeah.
and it's just like, even just watching him like thinking about what
Oh,
she's
him
saying.
like plotting stuff
Oh,
out.
yeah,
and,
you know, and then by the end of the movie, you're kind of like, oh, so that's what he was thinking. So it's just like there's so many twists, but yet they fit together perfectly. And even the old lady, like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
not seeing
I
the
don't know
right
the
person out
actress's
the
name,
window,
but she was
and you're
so
just like, she's
perfect.
just a blind old lady. She just, you know, she can't see through the glass or whatever. But then that comes in at the very end of the movie, and you're just like, oh my god, how did I not catch that?
Yeah.
Like, how did I not see that?
There's just
But
there's
yeah,
a lot
it's-
of subtle clues and different
Yes.
things that are definitely there, and that you
just
notice,
overlook.
but
yeah.
like I said, he just misdirects you enough that
Yeah.
it keeps you guessing. And I mean, it was really well done.
So
Yeah.
3.5 out of 4
Yeah,
stars
absolutely.
for Knives Out. Definitely a mystery worth going and seeing.
It's
Would you
fun.
all say
it really is fun?
it's an original piece of work? I mean, Ryan Johnson wrote and directed it
I mean,
himself.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like I said, it pays homage to like Agatha Christie and other detective stories, but I mean,
but as a
it
whole,
is unique. Yeah, I
it's
mean,
unique and it's interesting.
definitely
that
the
it's-
flavor of it, like the
it's
quirkiness
different,
of
yeah.
it is different from any
Mhm.
other type of like whodunit that you've seen. Like other than maybe Clue, which is supposed to be satirical.
Yeah.
Like this is actually like
This is almost what Clue should have been.
yeah.
I mean, well, the reason I bring that up is because our headline for this week is talking about how the controversy with The Irishman coming out on Netflix and it being 3.5 hours long, and it was long sought after by, well, nobody, because nobody wanted
No
to
studio
produce
wanted,
this.
yeah.
And so
Even
though
with
it's
Scorsese's
I was
name
saying,
attached,
with
which is
Scorsese's
crazy.
name attached to it,
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that nobody wanted to purchase this property because they didn't think it would actually be successful in the theater, and maybe not. But on Netflix saw it. They saw Scorsese's name. They stepped in.
I
they
think
produced the
Netflix
film.
just saw Scorsese's name and they're like, jackpot.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I mean, this is exactly what we need. I mean, we had Roma last year. Maybe this is our golden ticket for this year.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is
It could be.
that The Irishman was not picked up by anybody. However, one of the actors in the movie specifically brought this up in an interview recently because he brought up the fact that nobody was wanting to make this film.
Yeah.
Nobody actually put, all the studios were passing it up. Netflix stepped up to the plate to initiate their interest and the funding for it so that The Irishman could be made. And now National Board of Reviews has named it their best picture of the year. A lot of great reviews. It's almost, I think it's in the 90 percentile of certified fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
high up there.
So my question is the actor who brought this up was talking about how Hollywood itself needed to be reformed. That because they're so focused on commercialization and they're not really focused on being more authentic, like these films, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood we saw, The Irishman, which also Once Upon a Time in Hollywood walked away with Best Director from the National Board of Reviews. So the real question is does Hollywood need to be reformed? Is this actor onto something here?
Well, I think for the longest time, we've kind of been a proponent for, I mean, call it reforming if you will, but we've always said Hollywood needed kind of a wake-up call and to realize that they're kind of stuck in their own ways and need to change some. So, yeah, I would call that a bit of a reform, yeah. And I agree with what he's saying as far as these are the things when they affect these people like Scorsese that, like, are usually are traditionalists. Like I'm trying to be careful
but this is
I know you had the whole
Hollywood. Well, we had the whole feud
with
of like
Scorsese and Marvel that kind
really,
of got overblown. And
but the thing is when people like this step in, this is usually when Hollywood answers.
Yeah,
or they start to
listen.
listen.
Because Scorsese is like kind of you usually think of him as a traditionalist, like Spielberg and some of the others that like a movie has to be in theaters or it can't win an Oscar and this or that. And Scorsese's kind of seen the light with Netflix, where even he's come out and said, I couldn't make the movie I wanted to make with the studio, because people even ask him, why isn't this a series? It's a 3.5 hour long movie. You could have just made like a mini series for Netflix. And he said, no, because that would have been too long. He said the pieces had to be exactly the way they were to get the point across for the end of the movie, which I haven't seen, but I mean, I assume, from what I hear, I understand.
Yeah.
So he said,
I've seen the film. We're going to be reviewing.
He
that
said you
next
have to
week.
see it all in one sitting in the way it's presented, so it works the way it's supposed to. Which I can agree if that's his intent, and I respect that. And that's someone who realizes that yes, sometimes Hollywood, isn't as forgiving or as accepting as they should be. They want that 2.5 hour tickets so that they can get as many sales in the minute.
It all depends on
when you have big event movies like Endgame, of course they're going to let it be 3 hours.
Well, of course, but that's the point. It all depends because at the end of the day, it's like from their perspective, what they're worried about is tickets sales at the box office and how much money can they rake in.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about 3.5 hours. Already, it's like, Avengers is this pinnacle, but it's like, and again, that gives it even credence over the fact that it beat Avatar because it had less showings than Avatar. I'm just always plugging that. I have to. but the thing is when you have something like that going into the theaters, that's immediately what the studios are thinking of. They're thinking this 3.5 hour mob drama. You think people are going to sit there and watch that? They're going to pay to go see that? Yeah. No, they're not. And that's what they're thinking. And they may not be. They may have made the right choice. I personally love the fact that it was on Netflix because I did want to sit down and watch it. Yeah. And it was actually something that gave me it's something that I was looking forward to with a Netflix original, which has been a long time.
Yeah.
Most of the Netflix originals that come out, I just pass up and I'm like, it's just shovel crap now. Yeah. They just shovel crap my way. But this was something with a big name director, somebody I respect, and like you said, someone who I know still puts a lot of, he puts a lot of work into his movies, but I know also his style, and I like his style. I like his way of telling stories. So I almost know of a Scorsese name.
There's very few Scorsese movies I don't care for. I think there's like only 2 that I'm not that fond of.
The Departed is still the best.
I love The Departed.
I agree. I would agree. And it won Best Picture.
Yeah.
I love The Departed.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is it's like, I have seen the film. I know we're reviewing it next week, but I will say, like I said, it is a longer film. 3.5 hours is a huge chunk of time. However, for the story he wanted to tell, there's not one part of this. The way I phrase it is, you probably could have condensed it, and the studios would have wanted to, but it doesn't need condensing.
Yeah.
There's not a point in this film where, as I was watching how the story was evolving and how the pieces of the puzzle were fitting together, there wasn't really any part of it where I felt like, that wasn't needed. There was every single part had a purpose. Every single part came to tell the story he wanted to tell. And yes, the impactful ending that he's trying to get you to convey is definitely there, most certainly.
I'm looking forward to watching it. There's a couple of Netflix originals besides that one that I've watched recently that have kind of stood out to me, and they're not just that shovel, whatever you called it.
Yeah.
Like I think they're stepping up their game a little bit, and if they can continue to get big name directors and story writers like this, maybe that'll help Netflix in a way. But I mean, the theaters don't like to show a 3.5 hour movie.
No,
that's less tickets they can sell.
Yep.
So they don't like to show them, and so I'm sure they get pushback from that arena too. But I have no problem with a lengthy movie as long as it's good. And when in this article they're talking about like Hollywood being commercialized versus being authentic, and think about the movies that we've seen this year. We've had Peanut Butter Falcon, we've had Jojo Rabbit, we've had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This movie, since I take your word for it, I'm sure it's going to be a spectacular movie, and I'm looking forward to watching it probably tomorrow night. But all the movies that we remember from this year are low-budget indie films, most of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's what authenticity gets you. It gets remembrance, and not just money, because these movies didn't make a lot of money.
Right.
But I mean, Peanut Butter Falcon is a movie that I'll never forget that movie.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'll never forget
and
it.
I think
and that movie made like $20 or $30 million, maybe not even that much. So Endgame is also another movie that I'll never forget, even though it made all that money. But I mean, that's a commercialized series.
And there's a way to use commercialized films, I think, in a positive light. There are commercialized films that are worth being commercialized and also are still good.
Marvel does it right.
But
Jurassic Park, not so much.
Yeah, but in a way though, Disney hasn't. I mean, Disney has been pushing out all of these remakes of their classics.
Yes.
And these, and they're terrible.
Perfect example.
But they want the money, so they're commercializing these amazing classic stories.
Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Lady and the Tramp, which they released on Disney. It doesn't even at this point. I think they don't even care if it's good or not. They just know people are, because of the name, people are going to buy into it.
Right. 30 minutes into that movie, I was out.
It
was a terrible movie.
It is terrible.
but that is my point.
You do have an over commercialization in Hollywood,
and that's kind of the weird thing is we used to talk about how we didn't bash the commercialization or the bigger blockbuster films.
I still won't as long as it's good.
Yeah.
Well, but even beyond that, the reason we never bashed it before was because it was like, okay, you can't really bash something that's paying the bills.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, even if an authentic film or, what we're considering, we're using the word authentic based on, because there can be commercialized films that are authentic.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're talking about, hell, Inglourious Bastards, Pulp Fiction, all of these were blockbusters.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time was considered a blockbuster considering Tarantino's name and how much it cost to make the movie versus what it made.
Oh, yeah.
It's a blockbuster.
Yeah.
By all intents and purposes, it is like there are blockbuster films that still are authentic. But at the same time, there are a lot of blockbuster films that bring in the money that provide you more the ability to make the films like Peanut Butter Falcon or Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
And there are those films that I think touch to the core, like a Wes Anderson flick that touches to the core of just telling you a story in a unique fashion that most people, it gives you that unique view of what cinema represents.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to the core of what Martin Scorsese's claim was when he talked about Marvel movies being popcorn flicks and just being theme park rides. He's like, they give you the thrill, but they're not necessarily, they're not the Citizen Kanes or the Casablancas.
Yeah, and I agree with
him
to a certain extent, but not the Marvel movies, because there's so much heart and depth and
there
stuff into
are
those characters.
emotional moments in those movies.
Absolutely. Like I would not agree with him at all when it comes to Marvel, but when it comes to
DC?
Geostorm and movies like that, these Roland Emmerich movies, like Midway aside, but most of those, that's all they are. It's just like, let's go in, let's grab as much cash as we can. And give people a piece of crap that they just paid for.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the summer blockbusters and stuff is just those. It's just a terrible movie, but people go see it and it
Well,
makes
and,
all
and
this
I think
money. And
we've in a weird way, we've kind of talked about in the recent years how we've kind of congratulated Hollywood on the fact that the popcorn flicks and the summer blockbusters have become more authentic. I mean, you look at your Mission Impossible
Some,
Fallout.
yeah.
You look at
Impossible.
Yeah.
you know you look at these bigger budget action flicks. You know, I mean, think about it. James Bond was just a sex symbol. And it
Yeah.
was like, who are the pretty women that are going to pop up in that, and who's going to be the Bond girl?
Yeah.
And you look at the Daniel Craig versions, and it's like from Casino Royale on. No, they've been a substantial, blockbuster film franchise, but ultimately have given credence to the James Bond name and given that luster back to that series.
It revitalized
And
it.
it
definitely, yeah.
revitalized it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
in that
let's
way,
just
it's
be
like,
clear, though. Sean Connery as James Bond is still the best Bond.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
What are you gonna say, Keith?
I would go with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I'm
I'd say
outnumbered.
after Sean Connery,
Who would you
that's
pick?
when it needed to
Pierce
be.
Brosnan.
Oh,
What?
no.
kidding.
Okay.
No.
I was gonna say Daniel Craig brought it back from the dead
like
after Pierce Brosnan.
GoldenEye is the only good Brosnan Bond film.
Like,
That,
the only
yeah,
one.
Yeah, but it's not as good as Goldfinger.
Actually, Goldfinger is awesome.
That
but
is a
that's
great movie.
We'll get
But
it.
no, I-
But
go
yeah,
on
no,
about
Daniel
that.
Craig has
yeah.
brought depth back to
Yes.
that character that I think even Sean Connery couldn't put that depth into that character that
Right.
Daniel Craig can, and the writers obviously have
And I
have
think
managed
that's
to
the
do
evolution that
So,
you've
yeah.
seen from like taking that franchise, where I mean even Star Trek even. It's like a franchise that was a tent pole for one purpose and its purpose has changed.
Well,
and
broadening
people
it
have
out, yeah.
and
Yeah.
people have brought
Like
authenticity
what Ryan
to
Johnson
it.
tried to do with Star Wars?
Oh yeah. It
Yeah,
failed
back to that
miserably
again.
and should have done that with Knives Out and just worked on
It's
that.
okay.
film.
We got the Mandalorian now. Somebody got it right.
Yeah, John
John
Favreau.
Favreau, yeah.
Exactly. But the point is, and that was going to be my question is, kind of the last question rounding out this topic was with his article and with the movies you mentioned, Sean, all those blockbusters, or not blockbusters, but all those indie flicks that have been memorable from this year. And we've talked about how this year has been relatively
really good ones, yeah.
really good ones than the last recent years, most recent years. So it's like, even though this guy is saying this because he was in The Irishman and he's a well-known actor, it's like, have we already kind of started to see the tide turn? Do you think Hollywood's really picking up the message? I mean,
It's hard to say because each year is different. I mean, you see lulls and rises. I mean, so it really you can't really say Hollywood is changing for the better until they have a couple years in a row where you see this progress. So it's really hard to say. I hope so because I loved so many of the movies that came out this year.
No, and that's kind of my hope is that it continues. That trend continues of okay, we still see the little smaller gems that get made and that don't get passed up. And it's the bigger
I have hope.
blockbusters that fund them.
Yeah, I have hope. I mean, when even the bigger studios like Disney, Warner Brothers, you look at what they're doing, Warner Brothers is doing with DC, it seems like they've kind of realized and are listening to fans. Disney's the same way. Yeah, they're still making these live action remakes, but with Star Wars, they kind of realized, well, we flubbed up, and it looks like they're going back. So it seems like these
and
studios
again,
are starting to.
And that I think
They
the hope-
redid Sonic for the fans. Studios,
Yeah.
studios are
Yeah.
listening.
And I think the hope still is that ultimately the bigger player that these streaming services have and the more response they get positively from people who want to see that content, the studios will listen.
Yeah.
And that is the positive role that Netflix does play in all of this. So kudos to them, but we think Hollywood is at least on the right path.
Did
for
we
now.
have something good to say about Netflix this week?
I think
did.
so.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
been a while.
Yeah.
Can you believe
Good job, Netflix.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to move on to our unique weekly segment.
I believe so.
What could it be this week?
That's right. That's right.
And did y'all notice?
Show me the money.
That's
Show me the money.
Show me the money.
He did not speak this week during the intro.
Ooh,
Keith, you didn't speak during it.
I didn't have anything to say.
He usually does.
You gotta give me something to say.
No, you usually just start talking. During the
I don't have anything to say.
I didn't have anything to say.
I don't have nothing to say.
What's our Vices segment?
Well, because it is, the month of, Christmas.
The month of Christmas.
Christ.
We have
more?
Christ more or Mass of Christ. I mean,
It's like Christ had this mask,
Christ Maz.
and all they were really trying to do was operate on it.
So that's
and
what
we've
the
got
spear in the side
Yeah.
was for. Okay.
yeah. It was just an operation.
Kidney stones.
Well, that would be Easter though. That wouldn't be Christmas.
Oh,
That's
good point.
true. Yeah,
Good
you
point.
screwed that
You
up.
just-
but you
yeah.
caught yourself, so we got to give you credit there
I'm
too.
just saying.
I screwed it up by bringing it up. What's the question?
The thing is look, Mrs. Klaus is here on the table. Klaus is here. So we thought we would bring something to the table, considering it is Christmas.
We're bringing Klaus to the table.
Other than Klaus.
Okay.
Oh,
And that is,
Christmas vices.
a vice could be considered coveting.
Oh
And so when you talk about presents, sometimes you covet a certain present or you want a
Presents.
certain gift. So my question to
All I
you
want
guys,
for Christmas is you.
Oh, where's the mistletoe? Well, love you, buddy.
Last Christmas. No, okay, no way.
No,
way.
we're not doing that.
Uh,
Oh, I didn't
one
even
day.
think about it. We could have used the intro music
No.
each week. No, we could have put like Christmas.
We'll get
music.
flagged.
Probably.
Actually, some Christmas
We'll get
music should be
flagged.
in public domain, so you might be able to find something. Who
Well,
knows?
but not the ones I want to use.
Oh
you know.
no.
Okay.
No. But anyways, okay. The question is, what present did you want when you were younger that you did not get?
Ouch.
That is the question.
That teased the question.
Either of you? Silence?
What
Silence from
present
both of you?
Did I want and never receive?
Drum roll.
Scarlett Johansson.
oh, gosh. Oh.
When you were younger? Like how young?
My
She's like
entire life. No, she's really not that much older
she's
than
like,
us.
Yeah,
so.
she's like my age. She's probably like 34 or 35.
I don't know. I remember seeing her in Home Alone 3.
She's got to be
And
older than that.
Home Alone 3?
Oh, yeah, she's in Home
she
Alone
was
3.
She was the sister in Home Alone 3. I remember watching that movie back
Really?
then.
Oh, yeah.
And even then thinking, man, that girl's cute. And I didn't know who
this
she
is
was because that
Like,
was
man, this girl's cute, but this is a bad movie.
yeah. Actually,
It's not.
Home Alone 2.
It's bad, but it's still funny.
Home
It's got
Alone
funny
3
moments.
would be okay if it wasn't a Home Alone movie.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like if it was, yeah, but we'll get
If they didn't try to
If they
use
just-
the
if it was
bank
just
off
called
the
3.
name.
like if it was just I don't know. If there's
They
like
would've
called
just
Kid
called it-
Trapped in a House copies Kevin McAllister. It's like okay, okay.
yeah.
But no, she is. She's kind of cute in that movie, and she's
gotta
like,
check it
yeah.
out.
Well, she's really young now. Like
Well.
now it's kind of like that's kind of.
But
like,
she was older when
pedophilia.
that movie
Yeah.
came out. So.
She was older than us when it came out, but
I'm wanting to see the Black Widow movie for sure.
yeah.
Anyway.
Anyways,
that's-
vices,
Vices.
gifts. I did have one gift actually that I'm glad I never got, but I mean I did ask for it, and it was
A new gender.
no. When I was younger, in
wanted
the
to
Star
be a
Wars,
girl?
yeah. When I was younger, I said, "Mommy,
Like
I don't want a penis
parents
anymore."
can give that to their kids for Christmas now.
They could.
It's like
They could say, "Son,
here's a puberty blocker.
you are now female."
It's like, oh, it's my dress. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, I don't remember now.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you do.
Come on.
Come on.
No, I lost where I was at.
Oh no, we made him lose
I'm
it.
sorry.
He's never gonna get the gift now.
Never, ever.
You don't
I don't
remember
want
it.
it now.
You don't remember at all.
No, I remember what it was. I just don't remember. I don't want the gift now. Like I said, I'm glad I never got it. Crap. I got
But
my
just-
train of thought.
Well, what was it?
I don't know what it was. Give me a second. I'm trying to. Somebody else talk for a second.
Oh,
I'm,
dang.
You
all,
go ahead.
I'm all jumbled up.
Okay. I never got. I was telling you all before the show. Like I used to watch Dino Riders. Nobody seems to know what show that is, but
I
it
did.
was this awesome show.
Sounded
a
cool.
cartoon, and you could get the toys. And I wanted the T-Rex, and I never. The leader of the bad guys rode a T-Rex, and I never got it. Like my cousin Alex and Chris got it. My neighbor got it. I never got
Never
it. I got
got
the
it.
Brontosaurus, and I got the
Mm.
Triceratops.
Everyone knows the Brontosaurus is not as good as the
Brontosaurus
T-Rex.
is gay. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a long neck down, so he doesn't do anything cool. The T-Rex was awesome. He had lasers that shot out of his like
Everybody
helmet,
wants a T-Rex.
and he had like
Come
saw
on.
blades on his knee pads and stuff. Like it was legit, and I never got it. Ever.
Well, speaking of Brontosauruses, because it's actually now
Mm.
the one toy I always wanted and never got, and I'm glad I didn't, was back when Star Wars was re-releasing like
Jar Jar
their-
Binks.
No,
Oh.
I had a Jar Jar Binks.
I know. It was
You just
terrible.
screwed him
I had
up
a-
again.
I had a blow-up chair and everything, and it was awesome, but I didn't get that for Christmas.
Hurry before you lose your train of thought.
No. Back when Star Wars was doing the special editions, when George Lucas, first revealed to everyone he lost his mind. They added in, the different scenes and stuff in A New Hope. And when I was a kid, I was stupid and thought some of the stuff was cool.
Oh, you
and
wanted it.
Though they released new toy lines in the 90s that followed some of the special editions. And one of the toys is in A New Hope when they're first entering Mos Eisley, and you see this big old, basically looks like a brontosaurus type thing that a Jawa was on, rear up, and it throws the Jawa off, and he's like, they had a toy of that, and I wanted that for so long, and it wasn't a cheap toy. I don't know why. Like, I guess because
Star
of the big
Wars.
old, it was like a $20 toy, and my parents never would buy it for me, and I asked like so much. And looking back now, I'm like,
probably thank God.
Yeah, looking back, I'm like, why did I want that so much? It's terrible.
But you had a blow up Jar Jar chair.
Yeah, that was okay though.
Yeah. You
that was
used
cool.
to love Jar Jar.
I did.
I sat in my lap. Misa.
Neil used to love Jar Jar too. When we were kids, we thought he was funny. When I grew up, I was like, "What happened? This thing's not funny."
Yeah,
but it was for kids.
I mean,
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Was
George Lucas. I mean, he wasn't entirely wrong. Kids thought it was funny.
Yeah. What about you,
That'd
Brandon?
make it less terrible.
Mine was, and my parents always joke on me because I bring this up every year, and they're like, "Oh, you want that now?" And I'm like, just to rub it in, and they act like they're always like, "Oh, you were so depraved." And I'm like, look, I'm not bringing it up because I was mad. I'm just saying I did ask for it for like 4 years straight, and I never got it.
And what was that?
and that is, it was a grill. I wanted a plastic, small little Tykes grill, and it was just like those little workbenches where like it's all of it's plastic, but you act like like with the plastic hamburgers and the little plastic spatula, and it came with like a little apron, and I wanted that. And I also wanted, believe it or not, I was not transgender, but I did want
My Little Pony.
one of those
easy bake oven.
easy bake ovens because I wanted to.
I always wanted
brownies.
one too, and Miranda got
Dang.
one. And
They
I was
had a
super-
boy version of it.
They did.
They
have a-
did?
They
Yeah.
did. They
I
had
didn't know
They
that.
did have
Yes.
a boy version.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I always
like
wanted
blue or something.
It was like blue and green or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Miranda
well,
got
see,
an
and
easy
they always
bake
had
oven
the
though.
toys that were like the you. They always had like the weird like like you're in the dungeon and you're making thing, and it would be like the worms and stuff.
Yes.
Creepy
I always
crawler.
wanted-
creepy crawler.
Yes, I always wanted a
Creepy crawler.
I
I
never
always
got one of
wanted a
those.
creepy crawler too, and never got one. I also
Dang.
always wanted a light bright.
I had a light bright too.
And I never got one, but then one year in elementary school, the class I was in had one, and I played with it, and I was like, yeah, this isn't that great.
So you were glad that you didn't get a light bright.
No.
But yeah, I always wanted the easy bake because I was like, I want to make things like brownies and just eat sweets all
you
the
wanted
time.
to cook.
Yeah.
I
A
didn't-
grill and an easy bake
I
oven.
didn't want to cook.
And
I
now
wanted
you don't
brownies.
cook at all.
I wanted brownies.
You got a
That
grill
was all.
outside and you've never used it.
Yeah. See, if I had a plastic grill when I was younger, I'd probably use it.
Yeah.
I would have learned back
It's all
then.
your parents' fault.
Exactly. It's why I don't eat anymore.
Yeah.
I just eat other people's food.
It's
But
true.
no, that was it. But I look, tons of favorite Christmas
Oh,
presents
yeah.
too. We could get on that another time. But absolutely one of
Yeah,
you know,
good
just,
times.
Yep.
good times. Loved what my parents got me.
I wanted
was
a
not
virtual
depraved.
boy. I never got that.
And you should be
Thankful.
because
Yeah.
you would probably be blind today.
Did it blind people?
Well, it just
It
everybody
gave people like migraines.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was like the terrible red
Red lines
and black
and stuff. Yeah.
They said it was just awful for your eyesight.
It gave people headaches and stuff because it strained the eyes so bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Man.
you should be. Your parents were looking out for you.
Yeah, they didn't want your
Yeah.
eyes to be ruined forever.
That thing was expensive
Yeah.
back in the day.
But the thing
Like-
is we've come a long way because now we have like PlayStation VR and Oculus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're actually gonna go. Well, Sean, you got a gift now that's probably better than.
I got an early
Oh,
Christmas
man.
gift.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got an Oculus.
And so I think maybe we should just end the
Ooh.
show really soon now
And go play
go play Oculus.
Oculus.
Okay.
Does that
Bye.
sound like a good idea?
Yeah, see y'all later.
Well, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of the RM Podcast.
Yeah.
Mm.
As always, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host.
Sean, Sebastian, are we not
Hey.
going to read the email?
No
We
email.
have an email?
Keith Cheatham.
No, I'm saying you're not going to like tell
Oh.
people they can.
Yeah.
Our podcast at RMPodcast.com.
That's it! You got it! Our boy is a reproduction comment. Bye!
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.